I'm Jill Fielding, and this is what's caught my eye in the media this week. Well, first of all, I had a good old giggle to myself about a story that I read about a couple who were on Instagram and constantly posting about doing a house up in a really flashy way. They had gold painted staircases, elaborate wallpapers, exuberant touches, and they posted all the time about doing their property up. But of course, when it came to selling it, nobody wanted to buy it because it was a bit too flashy and a bit too done up. And they had lots of viewings, but no actual offers. So the agent had a quiet word with them and said, well, look, actually, your house is a bit, and he called it Marmite. So you either loved it or you hated it. And of course, most people hated it. It's all right to watch it on Instagram or YouTube, but not really to live in. So they spent 340 quid on a couple of tins of Magnolia paint, and they painted their house Magnolia, painted over the gold staircase, the wallpapers and everything. And as a consequence, sold their house in 48 hours. So it just goes to show people don't want the fancy, not when they're looking to buy. And I remember I did some work with a lady called Anne Maurice. She's known as the house doctor. She does TV programs. She's Californian. She works mainly in America. But I did some work with her a decade or so ago, and I remember her saying to me, what most people want from a house is the R factor, not the wow factor. Because the trouble with the wow factor and the fancy gold staircases is that people feel uncomfortable touching it and they think they're going to break it. And, it just looks a bit too posh. Whereas the R factor means that people will feel comfortable living there and they can see that they could live there and where their stuff might go and that kind of stuff. So watch the Instagram, YouTube by all means, but don't copy it for your own home because you'll never sell it. And always go for the R factor. Well, of course, one thing that's got my goat this week is how people are reporting property prices. And apparently, according to the headlines, we're in the middle of a property crash. Well, maybe or maybe not. I looked at the report specifically and looked at the underlying report, and there was a report from Rightmove saying that property prices have dropped by just over 1% between July and August this year. And that represented a drop of £4,795 on an average house. And of course, most journalists, most people would have stopped reading the report there, but I carried on reading to see what the detail was. And according to Rightmove, a 1%, 1.3% drop in August is perfectly normal and exactly in line with the average for the last decade or so. So because prices always do drop and soften in August because people go away on holiday and don't buy and sell houses and their kids are at home from school. So property takes a second billing at that stage. And it's interesting that, if you read the report properly, it's all normal, it's all fine, it's perfectly ordinary. Rightmove say they fully expect prices to rise again before the end of the year. It just so happens in August they never do, and they haven't done this year. So please, journalists, please, media reporters, could you read the reports properly and actually report the figures in the context that they're meant to be reported in? But of course, that doesn't serve their purpose because it doesn't sell the newspapers. Nor does inflation and salary figures. And I got myself agitated this week about what I call the mathematical misrepresentation of the facts and figures to do with the economy. Now, as a financial services person, I've been brought up for the last 30 years or so to understand that you can't say anything particular about a financial service product. You can't say it's likely to go up in value. You can't say anything like that. You have to say, here it is. And that really annoys me because if I was selling sofas, I'd be able to say, it's a fantastic sofa. You'll be able to sit on it for 17 years. The dog will like it. I can say whatever I like if I'm selling a sofa. I can't say anything at all if I'm selling a financial service product. And that always has frustrated me. And it annoys me that restriction doesn't get applied to the media and how they report financial services figures. So it's been hotly reported this week that salaries have dropped by 3%. And there will be some people reading that will think, oh my gosh, I'm going to start losing money in my pay packet because they won't understand what that means. And what it meant was that pay rises have averaged approximately 6% over the last year, but because inflation has averaged approximately 9%, it means that in net purchasing power terms, the salary buys 3% less than it did a year ago. Now, that feels much better to me because I've got some control. The thing about inflation is that inflation includes loads of things that I don't do. So the inflation figure might not apply to me. But having this carte blanche across the board saying, oh, salaries have gone down by 3% is just scary for some people. And it's misrepresentation of the facts and figures of the economy. And for people like me that are constantly trying to report positive news about money, this is a real frustration to be battling the mainstream media with their negativity and their interpretation of the data to generate a scary headline. And it's undermining people because a lot of people are terrified about money. And when they read these scary headlines, it means that so they don't take responsibility and they don't do anything about it. And that's terrible. Please, let's get a more appropriate perspective on financial news. And then finally, a lovely piece of news I read this week about a lady called Tash Krutko, who is a property investor. She's also an artist. And she decided to paint the houses in her street a different colour. So it actually looks like a rainbow. All the houses are painted a different colour. Now, she doesn't own them all. She just has painted some that don't belong to her, I understand. And what has happened is that in the streets where she's done this in 5 streets in Gloucester. In the streets where she's done it, there's been a much better sense of community because I guess you bond with all the people in your rainbow if you've painted a rainbow of houses. People have bonded with their local community much better. People feel more upbeat, and as a consequence, the properties that are painted bright colours are attracting a 10% premium on price. So the local estate agents say that if we get one of those houses up for sale, we know we can add 10% to the price because people want to buy a brightly coloured house as opposed to a miserable looking one. It's brightened up parts of Gloucester. What a lovely thing, and what a lovely win-win, because she's created something great for the community, something great for the local people, something great for Gloucester, and by the way, she's increased the value of her own properties. Now, what a lovely story. And I was reminded of the Rolling Stones song, I see a red door and I want it painted black. In this particular case, I see a red door and I want to leave it alone. Thanks very much. Have a good week. Bye-bye.